Pitching wins championships. Hey everyone, my name's Shane and I'm a big baseball fan. Welcome to 3 Up, 3 Down. We're going to continue on with our trade deadline series in this video. Today we're looking at the two top starters available on the market at the MLB trade deadline. The Reds' Luis Castillo and the A's' Frankie Montas. I think there's a lot of similarities between both players, so we're going to include them in the same video. And we're going to take a look at 6 teams that I think could have the opportunity to acquire either Castillo or Montas. So let's get into it. We first got to check out why I think Montas and Castillo are so similar. So you dive into the numbers. Both are 29 years old. Both are arbitration eligible in next year's season, which means they aren't free agents until the 2024 season. We're going to take a look at the Blue Jays, Texas Rangers, St. Louis Cardinals, Cleveland Guardians, Minnesota Twins, and Tampa Bay Rays are the 6 teams that I think could acquire either Castillo or Montas. All of this comes from Baseball Trade Values, so that link will be down in the description below. They've got Montas valued at 34.3 in terms of their currency, and Castillo in at 38.5, so very similar. And when you take a look at the numbers from this season, again, very similar types of players. Castillo has got a 2.77 ERA. He started the year on the injured list, but has come back healthy and been really good leading into the All-Star game. That's when these numbers are from. 78 innings, only 57 hits, a 1.67 ERA plus, 3.04 FIP. Just loving the numbers from Castillo. He has a tendency to be a little wild at times, 3.1 in the walks per 9. So that has always been the question for him, but he seems to really be putting it together this season. Frankie Montas has been very solid for an A's team. Discard the record. 3-9 means nothing. Pitching to a 3.26 ERA in 17 games is very good. He had a little bit of an injury trouble right before the deadline, but he's come back healthy. If he makes a couple more starts, I think the value in him comes back as we lead into the trade deadline. 17 games, 81 hits, 100 strikeouts. You got the 1.13 ERA plus, so above average again as well. Not as strong in terms of the strikeout numbers, just a little bit low. The walk numbers are better. Montas pitches to a little bit more contact, gives up a few more hits than Castillo, but you have to love what both players bring. Very different types of pitchers, but both valuable in the same right. Castillo is more of a fastball, hard fastball, changeup guy. Montas pitches to a little bit more contact and moves the ball around a little bit more than Castillo with a little bit better control. So that's the type of pitcher we're looking here. Let's see what this is going to take to acquire from some of these teams to acquire a Castillo or Montas, because they could make such a difference in the playoffs. First up, we're taking a look at my favorite baseball team, the Toronto Blue Jays. I am not big on the Blue Jays acquiring either Castillo or Montas, and you'll see why in terms of the package it would take to acquire one of these pitchers. I think they're going to be looking for more of a lower-end starter, maybe a Jose Quintana or a Zach Davies, but I wanted to put this together for them as well. I think the Blue Jays just make sense to bring in a starter with the struggles of Jose Barrios and Yusei Kikuchi, but they've traded away a lot of prospects the last little while, so I'm not convinced they'd make this type of deal. Let's take a look at one of the packages I think it would take to acquire Luis Castillo. I put Castillo with the Jays because they've had those types of conversations already before, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't have the same interest in Montas. Taking a look at the package you'd have to put together here, I would have the Blue Jays dealing away 3 prospects to be able to acquire a pitcher like Luis Castillo. Their number 2 prospect, Orelvis Martinez. This is the reason why I don't like this trade for the Blue Jays. I think Orelvis Martinez is the future third baseman, if not shortstop, of the Toronto Blue Jays. Their second-ranked prospect, 20 years old, double-A player, very good hitter. Struggles a bit defensively, but is so good on the bat. I think he'd be such a good player for the Blue Jays, so he's the reason I would hesitate to make this deal. Ricky Tideman's having such a very good year. He's a left-handed pitcher at high A ball, only 19 years old, really putting it together, the number 4 prospect for the Jays, and then including the number 5 prospect for the Jays, Otto Lopez, a middle infielder at AAA, not a big power hitter by any stretch, more of a contact speed guy, can play all over the diamond. This is the type of package the Blue Jays would have to put together for a Castillo or a Montas. I hate this deal for the Jays, so I don't think they would be making this type of trade, but I had to throw it out there. The fact they'd have to include Orelvis Martinez is almost a guarantee in one of these deals means the Blue Jays just aren't going to get the value back that I think they would need. So I think they'll look elsewhere for their starting pitching needs. Next up, the Texas Rangers. I include the Rangers because at the All-Star break, they're right around 4 to 5 games out of the wild card. I think they're a sneaky pick to acquire a pitcher like Castillo or Montas for as much of this year as they would have that player for next year as well. And I think Texas is really going to try to put a push on to acquire one of these players. I don't think it would be Frankie Montas. I don't think Oakland would deal within the division to Texas. So I've got them looking at Luis Castillo for that reason. I have Texas a very sneaky team because their July schedule is so weak that they could really get close to the wild card berth, and that would make a lot of sense to acquire a pitcher like Castillo. So let's break down what it would take for the Rangers to acquire Luis Castillo. Again, I put together a 3 prospect package. I think that's the type of package that Cincinnati would really look for in trying to bolster their farm system. The top player in this would be the number 2 prospect, Ezekiel Duran. He's their number 4 ranked in Texas, 23-year-old infielder at AAA, but he's having such a good year. More of a second baseman, but he can play around the infield a bit more. I think it's the type of prospect that Cincinnati would have a lot of interest in. Also including Cole Winn and Takoa Roby, the number 2 and number 14 ranked prospects, gives them some chance for the Reds to develop some pitchers. Cole Winn's 22 years old, right-hander at AAA, so he's got a lot of potential there, already being at AAA. Takoa Roby would be more of a long shot, 20-year-old righty who's at a high A ball, but has had a very good season there. And the big thing for Texas, I think, if they're going to make this type of deal, they have to avoid trading their top 2 prospects in Jack Leiter and Josh Jung. Those are the 2 guys that Texas absolutely has to avoid trading. If they have to include one of those, I think the Rangers walk away from this type of deal. But if you had put together a package of Duran, Kent, and Winn, if that works for the Reds, I think this is the type of deal that Texas would make to bolster their pitching staff, not just for this year, but for next year as well. Up next, we've got the Cleveland Guardians. Guardians are hanging around in both the wild card and the AL Central race. I think pitching depth would be a great place for the Guardians to look to improve their team. They have a team that makes a lot of contact at the plate. They've got some real good players developing in Andre Jimenez and Josh Naylor. I think this is a team that's actually on the rise. But for once, Cleveland seems to need some pitching depth. So I think a player like a Castillo or a Montas would be a very important fit. And it fits budget-wise in a sense because the Guardians would be looking to acquire one of those players for not only this year, but also have that locked-in assurance of next year as well. So I think this is the type of deal they would consider as well. I have them looking more at Castillo than Montas. It could go either way. I think it's a very similar type of trade package for either player. So let's take a look at what type of package I think the Guardians could put together to offer to the Reds or the A's. Again, I've put together a 3-player package. I think this is going to be kind of the norm here. Cleveland is really developing a quality infield. So their 4th ranked prospect, Brian Rocchio, 21-year-old infielder at AA, who's one of their top prospects there, obviously at number 4 in a very strong Guardians farm system. But I think it's a type of player that the Guardians could feel comfortable trading away, knowing they've got the progression of Andre Jimenez as well as Jose Ramirez locked in long term. So I think this is the type of player they would look to move and would be a very good player for the Reds to acquire. Along with number 8 and 9 ranked prospects, Logan Allen and Jose Tena. Allen's a 23-year-old lefty at AAA. He's kind of getting right to that major league ready. So that's a player I think the Reds would be interested in as they're really starting to bolster their high end of their farm system with pitching. And Jose Tena, a shortstop, he's coming in a 21-year-old player at infield, plays all over the diamond. AA player, kind of fits that system for the Reds as well. Maybe a bit of a more of a long shot of being a quality major league player, but I think it gives the opportunity for the Reds again to bolster that AA, AAA system, which seems to be what they're looking at most in terms of building their team for the future, is in that sort of age range. So I think it's a real good fit for the Reds as well as a good fit for the Guardians. Our 4th team to look at is the Minnesota Twins. The Twins are currently leading the AL Central, but they're seeing their lead kind of go back and forth a bit. And I still think the White Sox are going to make a run at them. I think Minnesota is a starter away from having a much, much deeper team. Joe Ryan and Sonny Gray have been very good, but they could use some more depth in their starting pitching. And that's where I think a Luis Castillo or Frankie Montas makes a lot of sense. In this trade, I have them working with the A's with Frankie Montas. They've had some discussions earlier in the year about this type of trade, so I think it makes sense that they would have more interest in Montas as they've laid some more of the groundwork. So we'll take a look at what I think would make sense for the Twins and A's in a potential deal. In this deal, I've got the Twins actually trading 4 prospects to the A's. I don't think they'd trade anybody off their major league roster. Royce Lewis is a player they might look to trade, but because Carlos Correa is not guaranteed past this season, I don't have them including him in the deal. And the Twins farm system is really lacking a lot of depth. So they would have to include, in my opinion, their second, fourth, fifth, and seventh ranked prospects to get this to happen. Second ranked prospect, Austin Martin, has been in the system for the Twins only about a year after coming over for the Jays. 23-year-old outfielder shortstop, and more outfielder for the Twins in their system at Double-A. He's had some struggles there, but he's known for the bats, which hopefully will develop along the way. Simeon Woods Richardson came over last year in the Jose Barrios deal as well. Fourth ranked prospect. He's only 21 years old. I don't think people recognize that. Right-handed pitcher at Double-A, so he'll be one of the youngest pitchers at that level. I really like what he's bringing and think he could develop a lot further. And maybe a little undervalued at the moment just because he's had some struggles at that age. Matt Cantorino, the fifth ranked prospect, 24-year-old righty. He's a Double-A, getting a little older at Double-A, but still a good prospect. He's probably looking to get up to Triple-A, maybe a couple years away from the A's, which would make a lot of sense into their rebuild. And the seventh ranked prospect, Spencer Steer, 24-year-old infielder at Triple-A. He's kind of played all over the diamond, settled in a little bit at second base. He's going to become a quality hitter for AAA Minnesota. So I think he adds a little bit of sneaky, real quality contact to the potential A's lineup. Again, it has a player who hit or miss. You never know what you're going to get when you start getting into prospects. But I think these are the type of package that the A's would look for. Multiple players with multiple opportunities to develop stars, especially considering they're going to have a lot of playing time in high-end system with Oakland and at the major league level. Our fifth team is the St. Louis Cardinals. Cardinals have had good years out of Miles Michaelis and Adam Wainwright. Jack Flaherty continues to be hurt, and they need some starting pitching to really push themselves to try and catch the Brewers in the National League Central or to make a run at the wild card in the National League. They're kind of floating around in or out, depending on the week. I think the Cardinals look at Frankie Montas. I don't think they'd have much of an opportunity to acquire Luis Castillo because I don't think the Reds would trade inside the division. So we've put together a package looking at Frankie Montas coming over from the A's. Now, the thing about St. Louis is they have the financial might that if they really like the player, given you only have about a year and a half you'd have Montas for, I think Cardinals have the might to then sign the player to a long-term deal as well. So I think they're the type of player who really fits well into this 1.5 years for the player. So I have the Cardinals looking at one of these deals. They've got some really, really good young prospects at the high end of their system. I don't know if they would deal one of those players, but we'll put together a package that I think would fit for the A's and the Cardinals. For this, I've got the Cardinals sending away a couple of right-handed pitchers and a shortstop. Starting off with our shortstop, Mason Wynn, the fifth-ranked prospect in the St. Louis system, a 20-year-old shortstop at Double-A level, a very, very good player, highly ranked within the system. Yeah, he may only be ranked fifth in the St. Louis system, but that is such a good farm organization. I think Mason Wynn is a true potential superstar. Then you add in a couple pitchers and Michael McGreevy and Tink Hence, the 7th and 10th ranked prospects. McGreevy is 21 years old, a right-hander, Double-A level right now. That fits into the A's rebuild timeline, I think. And then Tink Hence, it just makes sense for the A's to have another player, 19 years old, right-hander at A-ball. He throws so hard, such a good potential prospect here as well, a higher draft pick. I think he fits very well with the A's as well. They've been very good at developing pitching. Yeah, he may be 2-3 years away from the major league system, but just to add a 19-year-old prospect at A-ball with such potential here, I think it makes a lot of sense for the A's. They want to get as much value out of Frankie Montas as they can. He's probably the last big name that they have to trade from their teardown. Our sixth and final team is the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays have been just decimated by injuries this year, yet they're still hanging right in that AL wild card. The Yankees are running away with this thing, so they're not going to be caught in the AL East. But the wild card is right there for potential for the Rays. They've had so many injuries. Their pitching staff has just been beaten up. And I think a player like a Castillo or Montas, given that you're guaranteed a year and a half of the player, makes so much more sense for the Rays. I think this is a time that they really need to take a run at it. Their injured players will be coming back. Mike Zunino, Brandon Lau, these guys are coming back this season. There's a potential maybe even some innings out of Tyler Glasnow towards the end of the year. Who knows what a dynamic piece that would be out of the bullpen. But I think one big starter is what the Rays really could use to fit in behind Shane McClanahan with Shane Baz, with Luis Patino, with these guys. I think it makes so much sense for the Rays. So let's look at what they could potentially send out to either the Reds or A's We're going to use Frankie Montas in this case as well, but Luis Castillo would fit just as well. Now for Tampa Bay, the big name in all this is Taj Bradley. Bradley is the third-ranked prospect in the Rays system, but is thought so highly of. 21-year-old righty at AA who's just been dominating there. There's even talk of potentially Bradley coming in and helping out of the bullpen if the Rays make the playoffs. I think if Oakland is going to make this deal, or Cincinnati, Taj Bradley has to be the centerpiece of a deal in this. Other players include Greg Jones, the 5th-ranked prospect. He's a 24-year-old shortstop at AA. He's got good value. I think he's just kind of been blocked a little bit in the Rays system, given that Wander Franco signed such a long-term deal. Same with Willie Vasquez, a 19-year-old shortstop at A-ball. He's only 20 years old. Those guys are kind of getting blocked by the likes of Wander Franco, Vidal Brujan, some of these players that are already in the majors for the Rays. So I think they're the type of player that would really fit well into a trade. And I think the A's would be very smart to target these types of players. But Taj Bradley, it would be the centerpiece for either team in this type of deal. I don't know if the Rays would be willing to part with him, but if they are, this would give them a real opportunity to really push in the playoffs this year and take another run at making it into the World Series. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Greatly appreciate all the support you guys have been showing to 3 Up, 3 Down. If you're into this type of trade deadline talk, make sure you subscribe to the channel because there's going to be more of it coming through the month of July as we approach the Major League trade deadline on August 2nd. So as always, take care everyone.